Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to 16 Minutes, a new show here at CNT where we will cover a range of topics weekly, including politics, lifestyle, pop culture, business, health, and science. I am your host, Nigel Worcestershire, and tonight you'll join me as we sit down for 16 minutes with State Attorney Cole Gordon. Join us as we peel back the veil of the Department of Justice and peer into the mind of its top attorney on subjects such as the impeachment of William Benning, personal threats, and even a kidnapping. This is 16 Minutes. Welcome, I am Nigel Worcestershire, and we're here tonight with State Attorney of San Andreas, Cole Gordon. From civil cases to criminal defense and prosecution, Mr. Gordon has provided a service in every aspect of the state, and we have him here tonight. How are you doing tonight, Mr. Gordon? We appreciate you taking the time.
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic, mate. It's a pleasure to be with you here this evening. I'm sure you're a rather busy man, right?
I can be at times. Yeah, it's been a busy couple weeks for us here at the DOJ.
Absolutely. Never a dull moment, I'm sure, in law, right? Absolutely.
Nope, definitely not. Myself getting kidnapped recently and having that case happen, as well as obviously the high-profile kidnapping of the governor and some other high-profile crimes that have happened recently. It's keeping us busy, and it's like you said, never a dull moment.
Is there anything you can give the people at home that you're at liberty to say about the kidnapping of Governor Paxton?
Obviously, Governor Paxton was brought home safely by the extreme efforts of the police department, as well as a coordinated effort between the PD, BCSO, Major Crimes, SAFA, and the Park Rangers. It was a multi-agency effort that secured the safe return of Governor Paxton. And we are currently working on a prosecution strategy and going to be moving on that case moving forward here. It's going to take a little bit of time to get everything together. So it is going to be a little bit longer than the normal cases you guys see here in the state. It's probably, to be completely honest, going to be at least a month out before you even see scheduling hit the docket. But from there, it's going to go forward like a normal case. It's just a little bit more high profile, so we want to, cross our T's and dot our I's before we do anything.
Absolutely, sure thing. I imagine this case is going to be a rather tremendous mountain to climb, mate. The amount of paperwork that's going to have to be unpacked here is going to be unsurmountable, I'm sure.
That's for sure. So so far, I've taken a look at some of the MCD reports. They are very, very lengthy. There's a lot of history with this case and the people who kidnapped him in general. So there's a lot of paperwork to go through for sure.
It's quite the big case here. And you spoke a bit earlier, mate, if I could take you back for a second, about your own personal kidnapping as well. Take us through that, mate. What happened there, Mr. Gordon?
Yeah, so that's correct. So Simon Cooper, who's the guy who kidnapped me, him and I had a long history together. Basically, back in the day, in I think it was within my first week with the district attorney's office, I had been assigned to a case of his where I had convicted him. And then about a month, maybe 3 weeks after he was convicted of his first crime, I sat across the bench from him again where he was sitting for a bail hearing. During that bail hearing, he was only being charged with a bail violation, but during my successful cross-examination of him, he admitted to multiple other crimes, which he was then convicted of, and since then held a grudge against me for...
Oh, yeah. For doing your job, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather efficiently, for that matter.
Exactly. So I was actually right here in this office that night, and he came in and took me hostage with another man by the name of Chester Waters, who's now deceased.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunate to hear that. And what happened there, mate, if you can take us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so, he made it very clear, and obviously he was convicted of treason. Made it very clear he was kidnapping me because of my official position and wanting to use my official position to his benefit. He stated on multiple accounts that, he wanted to use my position to his benefit, as well as use the information that I could provide within my position to what he claimed was to overthrow the hospital and to get Maggie Martindale and Dave Booker thrown out as well.
Goodness gracious, a bit of a manifesto here. He was on a bit of an agenda here, this bloke.
I would say so, that's for sure.
Goodness gracious. And with a high profile, attorney such as yourself, I would say, You know, you've been in law forever, okay? You helped to write the bloody constitution of the state, okay? All right, Mr. Gordon, do you find yourself in positions like this a lot, mate?
Normally I'm not getting targeted. I actually have a very good reputation, I would say, with the general public. I obviously started on the criminal side in criminal defense specifically. Um, Obviously, as Mr. Kennedy has mentioned in the past and through news articles, my successful defense of Cassandra Cohen was one of my more major cases on the criminal defense side. But I, for the most part, have a very good understanding with the public. The reason I joined the DOJ and switched from the criminal defense side is because I wanted to make sure that there was equal representation for the public and that people were being charged with, crimes that would actually stick and weren't being overcharged. I wanted to make sure that everyone was treated fairly within the state, and that's why I joined the DOJ.
That's rather noble of you, Mr. Gordon. Everybody deserves equal representation, correct?
I would say so, yeah.
And if I can take you back again to that prolific case you spoke of with Cassandra Cohen, take us through that. What was that like? What was your involvement like in that case?
So I was reached out by Cassandra herself. She had contacted me when I was still with Gordon Law Offices and running my own firm. I knew her personally because I had obviously represented cases against her in the past. So it was interesting getting a call from her asking for me to defend her. From there, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that I can't talk about because it's confidential. But
sure thing.
The investigation itself, as that was made public, during disclosure on the docket, in my opinion, at the time was very incomplete and obviously lacking. And both at the time, Attorney General Attorney General McKinley, Andrew McKinley was the governor. I can't remember the other McKinley's name. Attorney General McKinley, as well as at the time District Attorney John McLemore, reviewed it and also were in agreement with me that there was a lack of evidence or probable cause to charge her, and happily they decided to drop all charges.
And a bit of a due diligence there, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's something that I strive for as well within the DOJ is when I get a case assigned to myself or something that's a high profile case, I make sure to go through it very meticulously and make sure that every crime that we're charging is something that we truly believe we have the probable cause to prove in court.
Making sure the proper justice is served, mate. Again, very noble, Mr. Gordon. I appreciate hearing that. So after that case, mate, take us through some of your other prolific cases. What are some of your favorites, Mr. Gordon? All right.
Some of my favorites honestly happened on the side of the DOJ. Getting to prosecute Edbert Lowenthal, who was known as the apex killer. He was one of my, I guess, my favorite cases. It really, he had over 13 victims. So being able to prosecute him and make sure that that justice was served towards him was probably one of my most rewarding cases that I've done.
And why did you find it so rewarding, mate? What made it stick out so much to you?
He was such a prolific killer, and his work, I guess you could call it, affected so many people within the state. He left behind a trail of blood and a trail of hardship for so many people, and finally being able to put a name to the face and put him behind bars and ultimately get the death penalty was a way for me to help those victims and to let the families of those victims know that we take this seriously and we're not going to let him go free.
Don't get caught out in that stormy weather, feller. Get yourself a CNT umbrella. You know what's better than being wetter? Having a CNT umbrella. Get on down to CNT and get yourself one today. www.cnt-sa.com.
Absolutely. So you've got another favorite, mate, for the people at home? You can unpack a little bit?
I'd really have to think about that. Obviously, I've had my mistakes as well. The lawsuit against Cash Keller, Representative Keller at the time, was unsuccessful, which was another one where I represented Ms. Cohen.
So what would you say, Mr. Gordon, now that you've got a bit of, time under your belt under both departments? What would you say you like for better or for worse about, criminal defense versus working for the DOJ? If you could take me through that a little bit,
sure.
The comparison of the two, what you found more rewarding about either side of the fence and what you prefer now.
So looking at it on both sides of it, there's pros and cons for either one. The nice thing about the private side is I kind of get to, pick my hours, choose my hours, and I'm really my own boss. Not that I'm not my own boss now, obviously being the state attorney, but it was a little, I had a little bit more freedom and say in what I get to do. However, the DOJ side has been extremely rewarding. Like I've said previously and touched on, just being able to bring closure to the victims of crime is something that's really important to me.
Right. And would you find that you'd be going back to criminal defense possibly in the future, or you're happy with where you're seated now and continuing with the DOJ through your career?
I'm very happy where it's seated now. I don't think I'd voluntarily leave the DOJ anymore. Obviously, I had, so we'll touch on this a little bit. I had put in a resignation about 2-3 weeks ago now, which I retracted.
Sure thing.
I realized that this is a place where I truly do want to be, and I'm gonna push through even when I do have hardships, and I'm gonna move through it. This is definitely a place I want to be. If there was for some reason that I could no longer be in the DOJ, I do love law, so I don't know if I'd necessarily go back to the private side of things, but I guarantee you'd be still seeing me somewhere within the legal system.
Sure thing. Well, you mentioned hardships, Mr. Gordon. Was it hardships you were experiencing that had you wanting to turn in that resignation in the first place?
Yeah, that was part of it. I made some mistakes, and I've owned up to them since then. The use of the park rangers to arrest Representative Benning at the time was a definite mistake, and that was upheld by the courts. At the time we decided, and that I'll take the full brunt. At the time I made the decision to use the park rangers to enact that arrest, I thought I would be fully backed legally within the system, but obviously the courts disagreed. And I've got to, ultimately
it's a bit of a
answer
jurisdiction issue, correct?
Correct. Yep. So that's what it ended up being, that the park rangers are very strictly limited to the jurisdiction of the state parks.
Absolutely. Well, that's an unfortunate, outcome there. It's, that you couldn't receive the backing there, but is, I'm sure you can respect that. I guess the law's got to be upheld, right, mate?
Yep. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I got to follow the law too, just as much as you do or anyone else, in the state does. And if I do something that's outside of the laws of the state, then, I've got to answer to it. And ultimately I did by having that whole arrest and court proceeding thrown out.
Sure thing. Can you take us through any more of the Benning case and a bit of your opinion on the outcome there of what happened with that whole thing?
So it's unfortunate that the criminal side wasn't able to be prosecuted. It's very unfortunate. I would have liked to see the criminal charges go through as well. And, I think we had more than enough proof to prove that in court as well.
And
I
for
think
the people at home, what were the charges being faced? Sorry to cut you off there, Mr.
Yeah,
Mr.
no
Mr.
worries.
Gordon.
If I remember to my correct recollection without looking at the docket, I know he's being charged with 1 count of corruption, 1 count of uttering threats, 1 count of bribery, and I can't recall the others off the top of my head, but those were the major 3 we were looking at.
Got you. And didn't come up successful, correct?
So on the criminal side, unfortunately, it only didn't come out successful because the case was thrown out. I do believe that had it gone to a court, we would have easily secured a successful prosecution of Mr. Benning. However, we did ultimately, on the civil side of it, still get and secure an impeachment, which during that trial, Mr. Benning also received a perjury charge because he said he had never made any threats over the phone. And attorney Cyrus Hunt, who's a member of the DOJ, was able to acquire a phone call that he made from a prison phone that was recorded, and where you can clearly hear him stating, and I believe it was shown on the news as well, but you can clearly hear him stating there that he was going to skin myself alive and kill all the members of the DOJ.
Goodness gracious.
Oh, I don't think you have the stomach for this work.
Oh, trust me, I've done some crazy shit.
We're gonna kill some DOJ members.
Oh, yeah?
Are you gonna rat me out?
Who are we gonna fucking kill?
All of them.
That's a lot of people.
We're gonna go after, let's see, we're gonna go after Harvey Ross.
Objection. Can we get a
Oh,
sidebar,
yeah,
please, Your
yeah.
Honor?
Special prosec.
Yes,
Harvey's
sidebar.
a dirtbag.
Yeah.
Absolute heated comments there, all right?
Yeah, it
Well,
got
yeah.
it got pretty interesting in court. honestly, one of the most shocking things to me is that even after he received the perjury charge and after it was proven in court that he was lying, that he continued to double down and continue to lie. So it was a very, surreal moment for me, and a good moment to understand that he was being impeached, because we don't want people like that within government who, even after, it's shown that they're lying, that they continue to double down and continue to lie. That's not someone we want representing the people.
If you can help clarify some of the confusion that I had, I know it was shared by some of the members of CNT as well. What was the reasoning for the move to impeachment after Mr. Benning had already resigned? If you can clarify that for me.
Yeah, so impeachment is a political move, regardless of resigning or not. If you face articles of impeachment, you still have to go through with that. That's not something we can just withdraw. Another reason for impeachment was, again, kind of like we touched on earlier, just the closure. With Mr. Benning specifically, him resigning would have given him the chance to run for office again. And we believed that there was more than enough to show that this is not someone who should be representing the interests of the people of the state. And therefore, by moving through with that impeachment trial, it's now barred him from ever holding public office again.
With the article impeachment, exactly, it prevents their future runs. I gotcha.
Correct, yep.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate that clarification, Mr. Gordon. Absolutely. Well, I think you're doing a fantastic job here at the DOJ, Mr. Gordon, and I believe your work shows in itself with what you can see happening and what you can see in legislature and with the public opinion of yourself. All right, mate?
I appreciate that.
We appreciate you, okay, taking the time to be with us here on 16 Minutes this week. All right, and again, I know you're a very busy man, so we appreciate you taking the time and sitting down and discussing a bit of the DOJ process and some of your cases here with us this evening. All right, Mr. Gordon?
For sure. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for tuning in tonight, ladies and gentlemen. With his resignation officially renounced and his sights set on the future of the DOJ and his position as state attorney, there's no telling what tomorrow holds for Cole Gordon, but we're sure it to be a thrilling ride. From all of us here at 16 Minutes in CNT, I am Nigel Worcestershire, wishing you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.